Yes, guys, I'm sorry. Welcome to Cardiff City World. It is the breakdown. It is Sunday, and we are talking Cardiff City, even though the Euros are on. We're just because it's what we want to talk about, isn't it? It's more interesting. The breakdown is a podcast where we break things down. Surprisingly enough, it's normally more of a what we learned from the game before, but as there's no games on at the moment, we're picking different subjects to break down. And tonight's subject is a really interesting one for me. It is the conundrum that is Callum Robinson. And it's something that I really want to dig deep into because it's an interesting one. It really is. Really, really is an interesting subject. But just as we wait for some of the latecomers to join us, just going to double check we're live everywhere, which we're supposed to be. If you all have any questions, opinions, all that good stuff, please do drop them in. We're obviously live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube, obviously, as well. So drop your comments in, ask a question, give your opinion. It's welcome. And, of course, always please do spread the word about the channel, content, etc., etc. I believe all the Joe Ledley tickets are gone. Believe there may be one, maybe two left. If you did want to join us this coming Saturday, a week yesterday, is going to be an absolute belter of a night. You never know who might turn up as well. It's going to be a cracker. Really, really looking forward to it. All the events so far, they've obviously got bigger as we've gone along. We did a couple of tester events before Christmas. They went down very well. It's a really unique experience for City fans because you get to meet these ex-players, in some cases, your heroes as you were growing up close and personal, have a photo, ask questions yourself in the second part of the event as well. It's, as I say, it's a lot of fun. The feedback for every event has been 100% positive. So that's all I can say. So if you do want to join us and you haven't got a ticket yet, send an email to the details below. In the description. It's also all over my social media and the podcast social media, Ace Podcast Nation social media. And send and see if there's any left. Last I knew, there was only a couple that I think they went, but you never do know. You never do know. But let's have a look where we are. See if we're good to push along with the subject. We'll give it a minute. Just while we'll talk about England. Just finished. Very briefly. Very lucky. Very, very lucky. So jammy. And here's the thing, right? That squad, there's a reason why England were favourites for the tournament at the start of the tournament, because the squad is remarkable, like the amount of talent in it. But so I think it's one of the first occasions, certainly in my lifetime, where the media has hyped them up. But it's probably rightly hyped up. Unfortunately, they've got a god-awful manager who doesn't have a clue how to pick a football side, or is very tactically naive, taking one half-fit left back with all the players they've got to choose from, and you're telling me that Luke Shaw at half-fit is the only option at left back is just mental. But, they were very lucky. Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, both pretty poor all game, but turned up with late goals to get them through. Congratulations to my English friends and family and stuff. I'm trying hard to at least not support them. My son asked me to for a reason. So I'm trying hard to get behind them as best I can, but I find it difficult because I'm Welsh. Simple as that. But I am trying. I'm trying. So Cardiff City World, as you know, 7 days a week, Cardiff City content. Brought to you by Ace Podcast Nation, but most importantly, it's by Cardiff City fans, for Cardiff City fans, plus, a few journalists pushed in there as well. Ex-players here and there. We should have the Willie Boland live event, or certainly some clips of it coming up soon as well. Next Saturday, where obviously the whole team is in Splott with Joe Ledley. So, I'm not sure what will be up on Tuesday, Saturday. There will be something. It'll be a pre-recorded thing, I would imagine. I've got a full podcast coming out with former Wales international Peter Nicholas as well. So maybe I'll put that out Saturday night as well. I haven't decided yet. But as always, we're open to ideas for videos. we're kind of holding back on the kind of like the scout reports and looking into potential targets individually that we're linked with, just until the Euros are kind of coming to an end. And then once they sort of come to an end, we'll really dig into, when Cardiff are linked with players heavily, we'll have a real good look at them and their stats and the eye test and all the rest of it. Get some proper analysis in there, among other things. But if there is any particular subject, player, whatever it may be that you would like us to discuss, please always get in contact, at Cardiff City World on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Ace Podcast Nation, everywhere. Myself on Facebook as well. Get in contact. But Callum Robinson, so an interesting one. So if you go back to pre-Cardiff City World at the start of last year, where I was still doing bits of Cardiff content on Ace Podcast Nation, one of the things I said going into the season is I was very concerned about the striker options. And what I said is, when you look at it on paper, the eye test, and what we've seen so far, Callum Robinson's probably the best finisher at the football club. So I would assume he's going to be the number 9. Ramsey's going to be the number 10, with Colwell coming in for Ramsey when Ramsey needs a rest, etc. However, it never really played out like that. So we're going to talk about the football side first. It never really played out like that. The manager, I don't think he once played as an out-and-out number 9. He either played him off the left or he played him in a number 10. And whilst I believe, Callum Robinson is able to play those roles, I believe his best role is probably through the middle. I think a lot of his career he's played as more as like a second striker. I just feel that he is at the as we stand today, 30th of June, 2024. I still think he's probably the best centre forward at the club. Now, obviously, we're looking to sign strikers, loan players, etc. You've got Kean Ashford, who I think long term might be a central striker. Same with Isaac Davis. Are they ready to, be the championship number 9? I don't think so. I'm not so sure about Isaac, because I would need to have a fresh look at him from his loan before I could say for definite maybe he is the answer. But certainly, as we stand today, I would say Callum Robinson is probably our best option as a number 9. I think he's got a lot of attributes that would suit certainly the way we play, because we play from the back. We try to play through the midfield and through the lines, and then find the likes of your Colwells or your Ramseys in these little pockets of space. And sometimes, if you have a big number 9, say like Kiefer Moore, for example, just as an example, hypothetical, like a big target man, they tend to will drop up deep and try and link up with the play. Whereas if you've got a quality number 10 like Ramsey, Colwell at times, what you actually want is you want people running in behind for little reverse passes, little 1-2s. And I think what we saw last year was a lot of congestion around the edge of the box and no one actually getting in behind, because the wingers were cutting in. So you never had anyone going in behind the fullbacks for the 10s to play in. Perry NG gets forward a little bit, but I wouldn't say he's like a marauding fullback. So you don't get that when the winger cuts in. Jamalu Collins, probably the weakest part of his game, is going forward. Certainly at the moment, pre-injury, he looked like he was going to be that marauding fullback, but certainly at the moment he doesn't. Conte, I think, looks like he could do that job, like overlapping. But what we ended up with last year was 2 inverted wingers, a number 10, and the striker dropping deep. So you just end up with a very congested edge of the box and not enough quality in there. And I think if Bullet certainly is going to play a similar style of play in terms of trying to play out from the back, possession-based football, 2 things I think will benefit that. Number 1, we have to do it like we did it in the first part of the season, where the possession-based football and the passing is with purpose and it's looking to achieve something, rather than what we saw more towards the latter part of the season, which was just keeping the ball going backwards and very kind of toothless. And then second of all, I think we need a forward who, yes, is capable of linking up play when needed to be, So maybe, like, for instance, a Kean Ashford wouldn't work at the moment because he's probably not big enough or strong enough physically. Whereas I think Callum Robinson ticks a lot of those boxes. He's not a tiny lad. He's quick. He's a good finisher. He's got good footwork. He's good on the ball. So, of course, you ask the question, if I'm saying that he's got all these positive attributes and he kind of fits the way that we could potentially play, why did he not play that much last year? Which brings us to the other side of it. So I think away from football, and some of this is like speculation, and some people might disagree with my opinions, by the way, and I welcome all opinions. But there was rumours that he fell out with the manager at least twice. Certainly twice. I think it was a disciplinary incident towards the end of the season. He was also dropped earlier in the season for attitude issues, etc. And he never really seemed to win Bullet over. It felt like at times he was playing, when he did have a little run of games at the sort of number 10 position, it was more because we didn't have any other options. And then after Turnbull came in, he didn't really get a sniff. I mean, I think I've said around January, February time, I didn't expect him to play in a Cardiff City shirt again, ever. And I think he played one game off the bench after that. And then obviously you had the disciplinary incident with him and Romeo where they got removed from the squad, and we went in with not a full bench. There's also rumours that he's on very high wages. So at some point, as a football club and a business, you have financial fair play. You also we have to raise money to buy players. Now that we're able to buy players, obviously that's a big thing because last year we weren't able to do so. So is he a player that you look at, and will the managers and the coaches look at? Is the juice worth the squeeze? I guess if we play him as a 9 or a 10 or a winger, is he going to be good enough and quality enough to push us where we want to go if we can get some consistent games out of him? Or is it better to cut his wages? Maybe better for him if he doesn't get on with the manager. Is it better to shake hands, say thanks for your time, thanks for trying, hasn't worked out? Because I think there will be clubs who take him 100%. I think there would be Championship clubs, there would be League One clubs, both cases who would take him. I suggested earlier in the summer that we should offer him and Ryan Wintle plus a little bit of money for Jordan James. Partly tongue in cheek, but I mean, from a Birmingham point of view, they would look at that and think, God, Callum Robinson and Ryan Wintle would absolutely tear it up in League One. So, look, we have to consider wages. We also, I believe now that Bullet is signed up to this contract and he is there for the foreseeable future, everyone's got to be pulling in the right direction, the same direction. Everyone's got to be on board. We have to have that togetherness. So if there is one or two, and I'm not saying that Callum Robinson is not on board, or that for all I know that any issues with attitude or with the manager, they've been solved by now. I have no idea. But what I'm saying is, if there is an issue there, or if he is frustrated because he's not in the first team or first 11, then maybe it is time to move. And I think, like I said, I think teams would take money for him. Let's have a little look at his stats and stuff from last year. So last year he played 25 games in total in all competitions, scoring 3 goals, 2 assists, which is not magical. I know some would say that those stats are better than Ruben Colwell's, but I mean, on paper they are. But I think by the eye test, I thought Ruben Colwell was way better than what Callum Robinson gave to us last year. He missed a lot of games through injury or unknown reasons. It's marked down. Was an unused substitute on the bench quite a lot as well. But if we go back to the previous season, 22-23, what was his sort of his stats there? What was his, how many games did he play there? Again, the season before he played 29 games in all competitions. scoring 7 goals, 7 assists. So again, like, yes, I think that, statistically, goals, assists, you will get a few. But what's interesting is in the last 2 seasons, he hasn't played more than 30 games in a season. Whereas when we were looking at some players who we could potentially sign, both myself and Pan on Friday and on the breakdown last week, some of the players we were looking at had played 50, 55 odd games last season. Like, they're the players you kind of want, which are, readily available all the time to play. So in the season 21-22, Callum Robinson played 44 games in all competition. He scored 8 goals, 9 assists. But in that season, he played through the middle as a centre forward. Now, I have no idea what injuries he's had over the last 2 seasons, but he's certainly played less games where he seems to have been utilised more as a kind of number 10 when he was playing as an out-and-out striker. So 21-22 into 22-23, when he played as an out-and-out striker, he was available and he was effective. He scored goals, got assists. Just going to have a look at some of his other stuff now. But it is an interesting one because I do believe, I genuinely believe that there's talent there, there's ability there. But Cardiff have got to make a decision on him, not just for Cardiff City and moving forward next year, but I think for the player as well. He's 29 years old. He's played for Ireland 37 times, scored 9 goals for them. He needs to be playing and making the most of his career. So if Cardiff don't see him as that first team player and as that option as a striker or wherever he wishes to play, he will have to have a think about what he wants to do. It's very difficult. But for me, and this is, again, it's only my personal opinion. In my opinion, I think it would be better to shake hands and part ways. I think there's clubs that would be interested in him, and we could utilise those wages and that money elsewhere on a player of similar ability with maybe who's a bit more consistent or consistently available, or maybe even a better player. But also, a new signing is more likely to be on board with the manager and the way the manager wants to play. And if the manager can bring in someone who he wants, he is, always going to pick the players that they've brought in. It's just the way of the world, of course. And sometimes it just doesn't work. I've talked a lot about, for players, for managers, coaches, whatever it may be. Sometimes it's just finding the right club at the right time and it just clicks. And that sometimes means that you can go to a club and it's, by no fault of the player, the club, whatever, it's just not the right fit. I always use Nathan Jones as an example, whereby he was at Luton, did an absolutely phenomenal job on a shoestring budget, played great football, togetherness, everything was phenomenal. And then he had this sort of big opportunity at, I think it was Southampton. I might be wrong about that. I think it was Southampton, where obviously he had a bit more money to spend in the Premier League. And it just never, ever, ever looked like he was the right person for that job. Went back to Luton and did a great job again. So, and I don't think it's necessarily like the Premier League wasn't his level. I just think Luton was a good fit for him and the way he wanted to do things. Maybe for Callum Robinson, maybe for some others that Cardiff just hasn't worked out for him. It may be. I was watching some of the training videos and I've spoken to a couple of people over the last couple of days within the club. And from what I hear, he's come back with a real good attitude, really motivated and really looking to push on this season, which would indicate, initially at least, that maybe he's not necessarily looking for a move outside the club. It might be out of his hands. It might be that the club want to sell him, and so be it. But I'm interested in what you guys think. There's a comment there. Scuba Sheep Productions says, get him off the wage bill and get someone with a better attitude. Yeah, I think if there's a problem between a player and a manager, usually it can be sorted with a conversation that week. I always think if it drags on after the sort of that initial period after it's happened, it's always going to kind of rear its head again. Now, I have no idea, what conversations went on between Callum and the manager, and if it was dealt with straight away, and if it was how it was dealt with, if they had a conversation, or if it was just he was disciplined, dropped, etc. And then obviously something happened with Romeo towards the end of the year where he was left out of the squad. So you have to have players who are on board. You have to have players which are on board with the team, the manager, and you have to have players who are going to run through a brick wall for the team. Now, I would suggest that doing whatever they did to be left off the bench, they've not only let themselves down, but they've also let their teammates down, because we've gone in to a game, a championship game, which we needed to win with, I think it was at least one less sub, and I'm not even sure if we went in with two less on the bench. So we didn't even have a full squad for those games, which says to me that the manager was he felt that whatever they did was bad enough, or needed to, like, it wasn't something that could be, I'll deal with this on Monday or whatever, because he felt like they needed to be dropped and disciplined, which is not a great sign. And you wonder if there's going to be any kind of, for lack of a better word, like a hangover from that. Like, if they get dropped, or if they're not in the squad for the first game of the season, are they going to kick off? Are they going to moan? Something that me and Rodri have talked about a lot over the last year is like people say, if you've got a bad egg in the dressing room, it spreads really quickly, and it can only be one. Now, I'm not saying Callum Robinson is a bad egg, and sometimes, like, the term bad egg can be kind of thrown at players and people. But generally, I think it just means it's just a term for someone, or I see it as in this case at least, it's just someone who's not happy. And if you've got a player or two who are genuinely not happy and they voice it, and again, not saying that Callum Robinson has done that, I'm just hypothetically, if you have got a player who's not happy and he voices that unhappiness because he's not in the squad and he's moaning to his mate next to him, that spreads, and it causes an atmosphere, and it causes the negativity. Anybody who's been in any kind of sports changing room knows that, whether it's cricket, rugby, football, whatever it may be, negativity spreads much quicker than positivity. I mean, we all know that from social media and the rest of it. So it's a bit of a conundrum for the club, I got to be honest, because on his day, and in my opinion, when he plays as an out-and-out centre forward, the man he's got ability. He's a better. I'll say it again for anyone who missed it at the start of the show. In my opinion, as we are today, 30th of June, Callum Robinson is the best finisher at the football club. So if I had to pick my best 11 purely on ability today, he's probably the striker. If you take out all other aspects and you just pick on ability. So what do you do? Because the other issue to it is, right, let's hypothetically again, you say you sell Callum Robinson. That leaves you with a Tete, who I think should go out on loan, but the manager does like. So, but in my opinion, he would benefit from a League One or a lower championship club going on loan and playing week in, week out. Like, I really believe if he can go and play League One football, play week in, week out, get battered about a bit, he'll be a better footballer for it, because there's definite ability there. He just needs to be stronger mentally and physically, in my opinion. So you got, if Robinson was to go, you got a Tete, he probably should go out on loan. You've got Isaac Davis, who, hopefully could be one of our number 9 options, whether it's as a backup or maybe even as the out and out number 9. I don't know, but can also play wide. Kean Ashford, again, probably going to be wide player for the time being. Is he going to go on a short loan, or it depends who we bring in? And this is obviously another part of the conversation which makes it difficult, is a lot of it could depend on who we bring in, who we're able to afford, who we're able to bring in, because strikers are not cheap. Myself and Pan on Friday went through a load of different strikers. Some of those strikers are probably out of our price range, but some of them I think are very realistic and worth a punt, because they'd be on low wages, low money, low fee, and they are like goal scorers. And also a couple of them from Scotland in particular. We generally have shopped very well in Scotland over the years. So it's an interesting one, because we're going to have to move players out if we want to bring players in, to fund it, but also the wage bill, and also making room. Fact is, I believe we need 2 strikers. So if we need 2 strikers, you've got to move a couple out on loan, move them out, really. So if you sell Robinson, you loan a Tete, Isaac Davis can be one of your sort of options. Keane Ashford could be one of your options. And then you've got Mate. Hasn't done it for me, I got to be honest with Mate. When he played against us before he came to Cardiff City, when he signed, I was super excited, because he always seems to score against us. But there you go. Paul says, if Callum Robinson puts his head down and concentrated on scoring, he's a 15 to 20 goal a season striker. So this is the interesting thing, because as I said, there's absolutely ability there. There's absolutely a player there who, if you can get the best out of him consistently, will score goals, will create goals, and will cause any team in the Championship problems. Can a club in Cardiff's position afford to get rid of a player like that? And this is where the conundrum comes in, because on paper, you'd say, no, Cardiff City cannot afford to get rid of a player who could potentially score you 15 goals. But we were crying out for it last year, was a striker. If we had a striker who could finish last year, I think we finished another place or 2 up in the league. We missed so many big chances. And and this is where I did feel sorry for the likes of Ruben Colwell, because people criticising his stats on paper, saying, oh, he hasn't got any assists and this and that. He created a lot of chances which didn't get taken. And this is where we have an issue. We have to get a goal scorer. We have to have someone playing through the middle who's going to take these chances. Is that Callum Robinson, if his head's right? He's certainly got the ability to do so, but he's also on high wages, and no matter how much we don't like it, finances and financial fair play absolutely come into it. And if you can sign, I know one of the strikers we talked about in Friday's show from Scotland for 500 grand on nothing, very low wages in comparison, and you can sell Callum Robinson for 750 grand or $1 million and get his wages off the wage book. I feel like we have to do that as a football club. Now, whether that's the right thing to do as a football team is another thing. So that's a really interesting one. I like that. CC Insider says, we did have a goal scorer like Ugbo. People moaned about what he did off the ball, but what he did do was score goals. Yeah, so Ugbo was a weird one. There's no doubting that Ugbo has the knack. And I said this, I can't remember if it was in the initial scout report we did it on him, or if it was after he played a couple of games. So I apologise. My memory's a bit rubbish as I get older. But regardless of what you think of his link-up play and his ability on the ball, there's no doubt that he has a knack of being in the right place at the right time to score goals. He scored a couple of goals for us, and he was just, when the ball's bouncing around in a box, He just looked like he had that knack to be in the right place at the right time. I feel like Ugbo could have been a good option to have off the bench. And it seems strange that we let him go back, and then obviously he went to Sheffield Wednesday, only for us to bring in Jeju, who was really poor. Now, I know that we had this conversation before about, was Jeju a bullet signing, or was he a signing that the board just kind of brought in at the last minute just to give him a striker? It's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. I find it interesting though, because like we need a goal scorer, and Ugbo obviously, how many goals did he score for Wednesday in the end? He was on a roll at one point. Like he scored 11 goals last year in all competitions. He played 38 times in the championship, scored 11 goals and 2 assists. So I mean, you know, when you're looking at it, we needed someone like Perry NG was our top scorer technically. So we needed someone to chip in with goals. So did we make a mistake by letting him go? I would say in hindsight, we probably did. Now, does that mean I think we should sign him permanently? And I don't think so. But I think in terms of just scoring goals, we probably should have held on to him if we were switching him out for Jeju, because what did he do? Really, like Jeju did nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we'll look at Ugbo's stats, because he scored a few goals for us, didn't he? Yeah. So he scored 1, 2, 3. He scored 3 in the first part of the season, but then he went to Sheffield Wednesday and scored, 6 goals. It's very, I'm just not sure. And those, you're exactly right. Those goals which he scored for Sheffield Wednesday, those 6 goals, that kept Sheffield Wednesday up. Now, was the reason that we let him go the manager's decision? Because even though he had a knack of scoring goals, did he, the way the manager wants to play, was he able to do that? So maybe that's very possible. That's very possible that he didn't have that link up ability. But I think having someone in your squad off the bench or in the 11 who's got a knack of scoring goals in the championship, especially where you've got so many like close games, like every game is like could go either way. Having a player like that to come off the bench is massive. And I also think that obviously Jeju was not a good replacement for him. So that was a bit of a weird one. Paul says the other problem which needs solving is the people around him with pace. Because we that was one thing we did seem to lack a lot, was pace and width. And Robertson has got that yard of pace. And this is why, as I said a few times now, this is why I think it's a difficult decision, because, yes, high wages, falling out with a manager, etc., etc. But as a football club, can we afford to get rid of someone who is capable of getting 15 goals in a season if you play him up front, who's got a bit of pace to get in behind, which is exactly what the likes of Ramsey, Colwell, etc. need. Paul also added, with Robson, Rambo, O'Dowda, Ashford, Colwell, that's a hell of an attacking lineup, but Bullet needs to be a bit more of a better quality midfielder and 2 wingers with pace. We're not far off a good side. Yeah, I would like to see us sign a couple of out-and-out wingers, or certainly at least one, because I know some people don't agree with me, but I wouldn't be disappointed if one of our 2 options on the right-hand side is Ashford. I thought he showed enough going forward and running at players that I'd be happy if he was one of our right-hand side options. And then I'd like us to, I've said the other day, I would like us to have a look at Poku from Peterborough or Ricky J. Jones. Ricky J. Jones is more of a forward who can play centrally or on the left, whereas Poku is more of an out-and-out traditional winger. And I actually think that's what we need. We lack just wingers that will beat a man and put a ball in the box and create chances for someone. And I think, if you've got a striker who can finish, whether that's Robinson or someone else, and you've got a winger who creates, plus you've got, we've got two very, very good number 10s in Ramsey and Colwell. Paul Abandonado made a good suggestion the other week. I'm not sure if that's gone out yet, so spoilers, I guess. I don't know. That, if Ramsey's fully fit, we might see Colwell play off the right in a bit of a Foden role, where he starts on the right and lines up on the right when we're defending, but will get the freedom to go do his thing elsewhere and be everywhere, which is an interesting tactical thing. And I think having different tactical options is also, vital to the Championship, because again, the games are so close in the Championship. You need goal scorers, you need pace, but you also need people who can look after the football, which I think is where Turnbull comes in, where Rawls comes in. I don't believe Joe Rawls will play like week in, week out, but I think for certain games and certain situations, he's going to be phenomenally important to the team. Whether that's, we're winning and we need to keep the ball, whether we need to unlock a defense with a deeper playmaker. He's the captain of the club, and I think he led the club well, but I think we need a different option alongside Siopoulos to me. Paul says, as you've said many times, and we've been through it many times, if one decent midfielder was to come in with keeping of the majority of players, I'd go after James. Yeah, mate. Unfortunately, I just think Jordan James is probably out of our reach. My personal opinion, I've said it a few times, I would offer Wintle and Robinson and a little bit of cash, because I think that's very tempting to Birmingham in their quest to get straight back up to the Championship, because there's two players who would absolutely rip it up in League One. But yeah, Jordan James, he's going to go for a lot of money. He's probably going to get a hefty wage as well. So we'd have to create a lot of money. And when you need a striker, strikers are not generally cheap. So you have to think that the majority of our money, wage-wise and fee-wise, is going to go towards a striker, particularly if we have to sign two. But then I think some of it depends on where Isaac Davis is, in terms of if Isaac Davis is a genuine choice in the manager's eyes to be one of our number 9 options, then you can get away with signing one striker then, because if you only play with one striker and you've got Isaac Davis and one other, you bring in a winger, you bring in an 8, and you might start to cook a little bit. Like, I don't think we're miles off. I think depending on who goes out, obviously, I think we need a centre-back, we need a number 8, we need at least one winger, and we need at least one striker. That would be the absolute minimum. But I think, obviously, if Perry NG goes, we need a full-back. I think we probably need a left-back anyway. I think Conte and NG, and then Collins, plus one other. I know Louis Giles is there, but I think the age of Louis Giles, he's more likely to go on loan, even though what I've seen of him, I've been very impressed. We got to raise money as well, is obviously the issue. I think Evo Adams, I think, will go to Derby. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. And then it's like, right, who do you think is going to come? Who do you think is going to go? I think Romeo probably goes. Joel Bagan maybe goes. Who else? I'm talking sales rather than loans. Maybe Wintle. The reason I say Wintle is we need a number 8. Turnbull came in January. Rawls is the captain and he's just signed a new contract. And Siopoulos is Bullet's man. So Wintle's almost the odd one out of the 4 to be moved on. And I think you get some money for him as well. I do like a lot of the things which Ryan Wintle does, but we always lack a bit of guile and creativity when he's alongside Siopis. Like, he hasn't got that ability to thread a ball through the midfield and find the players in the pockets of space and stuff. But you can't fault his attitude generally and his work rate. And he's good at closing down and tackling. He does his job well, but we lack a bit of creativity. 1-1 in Georgia-Spain game. So as we look towards wrapping up the back end of this show now, obviously, if you've got any players that you think we should talk about, any suggestions, like the CCFC Insider and all the other guys in the chat, like, what do you think the club should do with regards to Callum Robinson? If his attitude's right and his head's right, do you go with him but you play him as a number 9? Do you play him as a 10 or a winger, or do you just move him on, say thanks for your time, and try and get someone else in? I mean, I'm genuinely interested because I know, like I said, I would probably move him on, but like Paul made a great point, is if his head's right and he's consistently playing in a number 9 position, I think there's a good chance he gets you sort of 15 goals. Can we afford to get rid of a player like that, regardless of wages? And if he's a bit prickly and whatnot, no player likes to be out of the team. Just going back to what I was saying about the 2 Peterborough players that I would like us to have a look at. Both young. Ricky J. Jones is 21. Can play through the middle, also play off the left as well. He his highest market value at the moment is like 600 grand, but that's never spot on. Peterborough sell quite well as well. Played 56 games last year as well, which I think is really important when looking at a player, is their availability to play. He played 43 games in League One, 43 games, 9 goals, 4 assists in all competition. He played 56 games, 12 goals and 5 assists. Just trying to see if I can work out where he played more, if he played off the left or the middle. And the other one is Poku. I think Poku is rated as a bit higher wage-wise. But in terms of Ricky J. Jones, last year he played 29 games as a centre-forward, scoring 7 goals and 4 assists. He played off the left 7 times and got a goal and assist. He played off the right a couple of times and got 2 goals. He also played as a number 10 once, and he played on the left-hand side of 4 in midfield. So he's a very versatile player, but his best position is a centre-forward. I think it's someone that we should be looking at, I got to be honest. Again, Peterborough are not necessarily easy to deal with, but they certainly, they're open to selling their players, but they tend to get a decent price most of the time. Let's see if I can quickly bring up Kwame Poku. So yeah, Kwame Poku is 22. He played 49 games last year, which again, you're looking at that availability factor is phenomenal. He's a Ghana international at 22 already, played 49 games, 12 goals and 8 assists. I think, definitely worth a punt, absolutely worth a punt. He played off the right, he played right midfield on a 4. He also played as part of a 3 in midfield. So, technical ability is there without a shadow of a doubt. So it's definitely, an interesting players to have a look at. Paul says, give the Brummies Isaac Davis, Wintle and Adams for Jordan James. Let's have a look. He also says, I think we'll get 4 in, but I also think Bullets looking abroad as the British market for players is overpriced. There's definitely deals to be done, mate. There's a load of really good free transfers, when you've got the likes of Cody Dramer and Kipre, and I think Chris Wood is free, or he certainly has got like a year option. Chris Wood, Pan made a great shout the other day, saying like if you could get Chris Wood in on loan, because I think Forest have got an option on him, even though he's out of contract, but they've got an option on him, and we wouldn't be able to afford him buy him by any means. But would Forest be open to loaning him? I don't know. But he was just proven Championship goal scorer. He would just bang loads of goals in. Jonathan Davis. So this was the one which I mentioned on Friday, which I had heard a few whispers about earlier in the week. That we were looking into how, or if there would be any problems getting a work permit. Umit Nair, he looks decent. And I think when you look, he's a very experienced player, out and out centre forward. He is 31 years old. So maybe if you were looking at Isaac Davis, for instance, as one of the options for the number 9, it would make a lot of sense to bring in an Umit Nair, someone who's exceptionally experienced, Turkish international, an out and out centre forward who Isaac can learn from. It makes a lot of sense, and is someone that the manager is familiar with, knows how to get the best out of him. But also at 31, he played 31 games last year, but he's never going to play 40 odd, 45 games or whatever it is in the Championship. So it would mean that if Isaac was the backup number 9, he would get plenty of game time. And of course, Isaac can play wide as well, so he gets game time in maybe both positions. Umit Nair is, he's vastly experienced footballer. He's played in Europe last year as well. So let's just have a quick look at. Just before we wrap up, I'm going to have a quick look at his FB ref stats, because I'd be interested to see where he is in terms of his comparisons to other players in a similar profile. FB ref, I do like a bit of FB ref with your XG and all that. It's going to be really interesting, Paul. You're right, interesting week to be done. There's definitely deals to be done. Over the last few weeks, we've done shows on free transfers. This past Friday, we did a show talking about potential strikers that we could look to bring in. There's a couple from Scotland and some others. I think I did one on midfielders. We're going to talk about wingers on Friday. Myself and Pan on the Friday Night Lights, we're going to discuss which wingers could potentially be good options. And of course, at some point, we'll talk about potential loan deals, because I think there's always some good loan deals to pick up. And I think that at the moment, there's some exceptionally talented young players in the Premier League who are not quite getting a look in, that if you got them down here for a season, they would really tear it up. Like, they could really, really make a name for themselves, whether that's someone like a Lewis Kumas or Harry Ames. There's all sorts of players. Let's have a look at Umit Nair's finishing stats. No, it's not loading. That's frustrating. But Jonathan, I know it's like you're in the chat now. What do you think we should do with Callum Robinson? Because I can't quite make my mind up. Like, I was pretty set that I think we should get rid of him for, the obvious reasons. But I do think if you look back at his career, the season he had as an out-and-out centre-forward, he was available for the most amount of games he's ever been available and scored goals. And he probably scored, 10 to 15 goals playing up front. But we never seemed to play him up front. Jonathan says he'd sell him. Fair enough. Yeah, I just think if anyone's not on board with the manager, they probably got to go to move us forward. And he's on high wages. And the manager, just for whatever reason, doesn't seem to see him as an out-and-out 9. Seems to see him more as a 10 or a wide player. And I don't think we get the best out of him. I think if you're talking wider areas and number 10, I think we got the number 10 covered. And I think the wide areas, I just think we can get better wingers than Callum Robinson in. Now, if he was going to be an out-and-out number 9, I could see why he might be decent to keep in. Jonathan says, bad attitude, disruptive in the changing room, high wage, and little to no impact. Can't argue with that, mate. And that was my thought. initially and what I said earlier on in the season as well. Paul says one player I'm not sure about is Ethan Howworth, poor towards the end of the season. No, I think Ethan Howworth is a proven championship goalkeeper. I agree with you. He did have a few ropey moments towards the end of the season, but he also kept us in a lot of games. So I'm not too worried about him. However, I do think that Alnwick was incredibly unlucky to lose his place in the side, first to Runnison and then obviously to Howworth. But if they're your two keepers with young Turner as the backup, I'm more than happy with those two competing for that spot because they're both pretty good championship keepers. Now, what will be interesting is I think it's very clear the manager doesn't really fancy Alnwick. Will Alnwick want to sit on the bench all season? So I wonder whether he might end up being he might end up being sold. It's going to be a fascinating summer, my friends. Loads of stuff coming up this week, whether it's the history of football, City Legends with Willie Boland, part 1, a few other little bits and pieces. If you've got any ideas for a pre-recorded video to come out on Saturday night, then let me know because the whole team is going to be in Splott for the Joe Ledley event. So if you've got any ideas that you'd like the little video, 20 minutes or something that I can pre-record, we might have an episode of the Greek League this week as well. We'll obviously be back Friday with the Friday Night Lights, where me and Pan will be talking potential wingers that Cardiff City can sign. We'll have the Flower Hour on Wednesday and a whole host of other things. Cardiff City content 7 days a week. We are always looking for suggestions, opinions, and the rest of it. Spread the word, tell your friends. If you want to get involved, get in contact. As I say, as soon as the Euros coming towards an end, we're going to really nail down into the pre-season content, previews, vlogs, the lot, scout reports. It's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you all. Take care. Jobless.